Hey everyone, tonight we are washing away the noise. The rain is falling heavily outside, but in here the air is thick with the scent of lavender and clean oil. We are stepping into the medieval soap maker's workshop, where time moves slowly and every movement matters. We are going to watch the slow, satisfying transformation of oil into stone. This is a story about purity, chemistry, and the perfect moment when everything comes together. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to breathe deeply, find your favorite position, and prepare yourself for a journey into the world of ancient cleanliness. Now, breathe in the clean air, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The workshop sits on the edge of the village, where the cobblestones meet the countryside. Outside, the rain continues its patient work, washing everything clean drip by drip, pooling in the worn grooves of the stones. The sound is distant and muffled, a soft percussion that fades the moment you step through the wooden door. Inside, the world is different. The world is warmer. The world is filled with purpose and patience. Your eyes adjust slowly to the interior light. It comes from tall windows on the eastern wall, and at this hour, the sun is low and golden, filtering through the raindrops that cling to the glass. The light transforms into something almost liquid as it falls across the workshop floor. The air itself seems to glow with a gentle warmth. And the smell is what truly greets you first. It is not one smell, but many. They layer over each other like the finest silk, each one distinct, yet completely harmonious. There is lavender, dried and hanging in small bundles from the wooden beams above. There is rosemary, its sharp green notes cutting through the softer florals with a kind of gentle intensity. There is olive oil, rich and golden, with undertones of earth and sun. And beneath it all, there is something clean, something pure, something that feels like the essence of cleanliness itself. The workshop is not large, but it is full. Every surface holds purpose. Every corner contains knowledge accumulated over years, over decades, over the lifetimes of soap makers who came before. The walls are lined with barrels. Some are enormous, made of thick wood reinforced with iron bands that have oxidized into a deep rust color. Others are smaller, more refined, designed for specific ingredients or specific steps. The wood of these barrels is warm to the touch, aged to a soft honey color, darkened by the moisture and the oils that have stained them over the years. Along one wall, neat and orderly, sit the glass bottles and ceramic containers. These hold the essences and the special ingredients. Lavender essence from the southern provinces, imported at great expense, a liquid so concentrated that a single drop can perfume an entire room. Rose oil, precious and pale pink, sitting in dark glass to protect it from the light. Thyme, oregano, myrtle, bay leaf, each one carefully labeled in the soap maker's precise hand. But the true ingredients of soap, the essential ones, they come in much simpler forms. The whitewood ash sits in large burlap sacks along the back wall. This ash is not burned wood from just anywhere. It comes specifically from the bakeries in town, from the ovens that have burned oak and beech all year long. The bakers save it, knowing the soap maker will come. The ash is light and dusty, nearly white, almost like the finest flour. When you run your fingers through it, it feels like touching something ancient and soft. This ash, this seemingly simple byproduct of heat and flame, is one half of the equation. It is alchemy waiting to happen. Beside the ash sit the jars of tallow. Tallow is rendered animal fat, white and waxy, hard when cool but soft when warmed. It comes from the butchers, from the cattle and the sheep that feed the village. Nothing is wasted in this world. What the knife leaves behind, what the cook deems unsuitable for the pot, becomes something essential. The tallow catches the light in a way that is almost beautiful, smooth and creamy white, like the skin of an egg. The smell is mild, slightly meaty, but not unpleasant. It is the smell of transformation waiting to happen. And then there is the olive oil. The olive oil arrives in large clay amphorae, sealed with wax and cork, having traveled from the Mediterranean south. It is liquid gold in every sense. The color ranges from pale straw to deep green depending on the harvest and the region. The finest oil for the finest soaps is pale and clear, almost colorless when held to the light, but with hints of green beneath. It smells of the sun and the earth, of the ancient groves where the trees have grown for centuries. Some of this oil is so expensive that it is used only for the soaps meant for nobility. For the common soaps, they use a deeper green oil, more robust, more earthy, but all of it carries within it the promise of cleanliness. These are the ingredients. This is the vocabulary of soap making. Ash, tallow, oil, and water. The water comes from the well in the courtyard outside, drawn fresh each morning, cool and clean. With these four things, the soap maker creates something that the world cannot live without. Something that removes the dirt and the dust and the accumulated grime of work and effort and life. Something that makes the skin feel new again. The large wooden table in the center of the room holds the tools of the trade. There is the paddle, made of ash wood, worn smooth by years of stirring. It is long, nearly as tall as a man, with a wide, flat blade at the end. The edges are slightly rounded from constant use, and the wood has absorbed years of soap residue, giving it a faint, creamy color despite the wood's original golden tone. Next to the paddle are the measuring implements. Wooden dippers of various sizes, marked with careful notches to indicate volume. A long wooden rod used for testing, for checking consistency, for understanding the progress of the work. Beside these are ladles and smaller spoons, and hanging from nails on the wall are cloth strainers and small brushes for cleaning. The focus of everything is the large copper cauldron. It sits on a low platform above a fireplace that is more sophisticated than those in most homes. The cauldron is ancient, the copper a deep reddish brown, its surface textured with hundreds of years of careful maintenance and use. The bottom is curved, perfect for even heat distribution. The sides slope gently upward to a wide rim. When light falls on it, it glows with a richness that seems to contain entire sunsets. This cauldron has held more soap than any person alive has seen. It has transformed more oil into cleanliness than could be counted. And tonight, it will do so again. But before the cauldron comes into play, there is the work of making lye. And this is where the alchemy truly begins. This is where the simple becomes powerful. This is where transformation first whispers its possibility. The lye-making station is in the corner near the window. A large barrel stands on end, and through its wooden bottom, which has been pierced with countless small holes, a clear liquid will eventually drip. But before that liquid can drip, the ash must be prepared. The soap maker reaches into the burlap sack and gathers ash by the handful. The ash is cool and soft, incredibly light. It clings to the hands and dissolves at the slightest moisture. A handful of this white dust is like holding the memory of fire. The ash is layered carefully into the barrel. One handful, then another and another. The layer grows inch by inch. When enough ash has been added, perhaps a quarter of the barrel's depth, the soap maker moves to the water. The water has been drawn fresh from the well, and it sits in a large ceramic pitcher. This water, which seems so simple and pure, will transform the ash into something far more powerful. The first water is poured onto the ash. It hits the top of the pile and begins to trickle downward. The ash around it turns darker, then light again as the water continues its journey. Slowly, drop by drop, the water begins to emerge from the holes in the bottom of the barrel. It drips into a wooden bucket positioned carefully below. The first drops are pale and almost clear, but they contain something. They contain power. They contain the magic of alkaline water, the lye that has been drawn from the ash by the patient work of gravity and time. The dripping continues, methodical and quiet. Drip, drip, drip. The sound is hypnotic, almost meditative. It is the sound of transformation happening at nature's own pace. No one hurries this process. The soap maker knows that this work cannot be rushed. The water must have time to leach out the alkalinity from the ash. Rushing it would mean weak lye, and weak lye would mean weak soap. So the water falls through the ash, one drop at a time, and the bucket slowly fills with a clear liquid that carries within it incredible power. As the process continues, more water is added to the top of the ash barrel. Each new addition takes time to work its way through. The soap maker is patient. This is the nature of their work. Everything in the soap-making process moves at a deliberate pace. Nothing is forced. Nothing is heated into rapid change. The lye water accumulates, drip by drip, and each drop carries with it the very essence of the ash. Each drop contains the potential to transform. When enough lye has been collected, when the bucket is full and the liquid is strong enough, the soap maker tests it. They take a chicken feather and place it in the lye water. If the lye is strong enough, it will begin to dissolve the feather. The feather will soften, break apart, dissolve away. This is the test of a good lye. This is how the soap maker knows that the magic is ready. The feather, that most fragile of things, becomes the measure of strength. If the lye is too weak, the feather will simply float and eventually sink, unharmed. But if the lye is right, if it has been prepared well, the feather will dissolve, proving that this liquid carries enough power to transform oil into soap. The lye water is clear as glass, completely transparent. Yet to look at it is to sense danger. This is not something to touch carelessly. This is not something to splash or spill. This is power concentrated into a liquid form. It would burn the skin. It would blur the eyes. It would dissolve many things that seem solid. Yet in small quantities, carefully measured, combined with oil and time and human intention, it becomes the essential ingredient in something gentle and pure and necessary. The lye sits waiting. The oil, meanwhile, begins its own preparation. The oil must be warmed, gently, carefully, brought from the cool earthiness of storage into the temperature range, where it will be ready to receive the lye and begin the transformation. The cauldron sits on its platform, and below it the fire is carefully tended. This is not a roaring flame meant for cooking or for heat. This is a gentle, consistent warmth. The soap maker is an expert in fire. They understand that the temperature must be consistent and moderate. Too hot, and the oil will turn dark and burn. Too cool, and the reaction will not proceed properly. Just right, and the oil will warm evenly, will reach the perfect temperature, and will become ready. The oil is ladled from one of the large storage jars. The ladle itself is like a small bucket, and each ladleful is precious. The weight of the oil is evident in the way the ladle feels, substantial and full. The soap maker pours the oil into the cauldron, and it spreads across the bottom, a golden pool that catches the firelight. Ladle after ladle, the oil accumulates. Dozens of ladles, hundreds of pounds of oil, all pouring into the cauldron in a continuous meditative rhythm. The sound is almost musical as each ladle empties and is returned for another load. As the oil fills the cauldron, the warmth from below begins to work on it. The oil, which started cool and thick and cloudy, begins to change. The warmth penetrates the liquid slowly. The molecules begin to move faster with more energy. The opacity begins to fade. Where the oil was thick and pale at first, it now becomes slightly more transparent. The warmth rises through the oil from bottom to top, and the soap maker is careful, always careful, to keep the temperature consistent. The paddle is placed into the oil now, resting against the sides of the cauldron. The paddle is there to stir occasionally, to ensure even heating, to break apart any clumps or separation. The stirring is slow and gentle. The paddle moves through the oil like a human hand moving through warm water, unhurried and thoughtful. The oil parts easily for the paddle, and as it does, more of the warmth is distributed. More of the opacity fades. The transformation is beautiful to watch. The oil that was pale and cloud-like is becoming clear. The warmth has done its work, and the oil now shows its true nature. It is golden. It is clear. It is like liquid sunlight sitting in the copper cauldron. The color ranges from pale straw to a deeper honey, depending on how deep you look into the mass of it. On the surface, the oil reflects the firelight, and the effect is almost hypnotic. The oil is becoming something new already, just through the simple application of heat and time. The soap maker watches the oil carefully. They have done this hundreds of times, thousands of times perhaps, and yet each time holds its own fascination. The way the oil transforms is always the same, and yet always slightly different depending on the season, the age of the oil, the exact temperature of the day. The work is both precise and intuitive. There are measurements, yes, and there are procedures, but there is also an artistry in knowing exactly when each step is ready to move into the next. When the oil is warm enough, when it is completely clear and its temperature is right, when the soap maker's experienced hand has tested the warmth and found it satisfactory, the moment comes to add the lye. This is when the magic truly begins. This is when two simple substances combine to create something entirely new through the mysterious process that the soap maker calls saponification. The lye water is measured carefully. The proportions matter deeply. Too little lye, and the oil will not fully transform into soap, leaving a greasy residue. Too much lye, and the soap will be harsh and will burn the skin. The measurement is precise, calculated based on the type and quantity of oil being used. The soap maker knows these proportions in their bones. Their hands know how much to pour. Their eyes know when the measurement is right. The lye water is lifted carefully, poured slowly into the warm oil. The moment the first drops hit the oil surface, the reaction begins. The liquid where they meet becomes cloudy. The clear golden oil is interrupted by a pale mist, a cloudiness that seems to bloom where the lye touches it. The soap maker pours slowly and steadily, and with each pour the effect multiplies. The cloudiness spreads. The clear oil gives way to something opaque and pale. The mixture is no longer oil. It is no longer just lye. It has become something in between, something caught in transformation. The moment when all the lye has been added is crucial. The soap maker watches carefully. The oil and the lye have mixed, but they are not yet unified. The mixture is thick and pale and separated slightly into layers, with the lye water visible in some places and the oil in others. This is the moment when the stirring begins in earnest. This is when the paddle becomes an extension of the soap maker's will, the instrument through which they guide the two substances into becoming one. The paddle enters the cauldron now, and the stirring begins. This is not vigorous stirring meant for cooking. This is deep, slow, intentional stirring. The paddle moves through the mixture, and with each stroke, it brings the layers together. It incorporates the separate parts into a unified whole. The motion is almost meditative. The soap maker stands beside the cauldron, and their arms move in a steady rhythm. The paddle pulls through the mixture, from the bottom to the top, and as it does, it transforms everything it touches. The mixture, which was cloudy and separated moments ago, begins to thicken under the paddle's work. The stirring brings all the material into uniform contact, and as it does, the chemical reaction that is saponification accelerates. The oils are breaking down. The lye is working its magic. The fat molecules are being transformed at a molecular level into something entirely new. The soap is being born. The texture of the mixture changes with each stroke of the paddle. It thickens gradually, almost imperceptibly at first. The mixture was cloudy and loose, but now it is becoming creamy. The paddle, as it moves through the mass, leaves brief trails that fill in quickly. The mixture is developing body. It is developing structure. It is becoming more like a custard than a liquid, more like a pudding than an oil and water mixture. The stirring continues, rhythmic and patient. The soap maker's breathing is slow and deep. There is no rush. This is the work, and the work cannot be hurried. The mixture becomes smoother under the paddle's attention. The cloudiness becomes even, uniform. There are no more separated layers. Everything is one thing, a unified creamy pale mass that moves as a single entity within the cauldron. The work is deeply satisfying. The paddle moves through the mixture, and with each stroke, the transformation is evident. The mixture grows thicker. It becomes more luxurious in texture. It develops a richness, a creaminess that was not there before. The paddle is covered in the mixture now, and as it is lifted from the mass, the soap clings to it, hangs from it momentarily before dripping back down. The drip is slow, syrupy, not the swift drop of oil or water, but the patient flow of something thick and uniform. The soap maker's attention is complete and total. Their eyes are on the mixture. Their hands feel the resistance of the paddle, the way the mixture grips and releases it. Their nose is filled with the scent, the lavender and rosemary and olive oil mingling with something new, something that is the smell of chemical transformation, of fats becoming something entirely different. They are present in this moment completely. The stirring continues for a long time. Minutes pass, perhaps more. Time feels different when you are engaged in such work. Time becomes less about the clock and more about the process, about the way the mixture changes, about the steady progress toward the moment when everything will be ready. The mixture that started as two separate substances has become unified. The paddle moves through it smoothly now, with no resistance, but also with purpose. The mixture has developed enough structure that it maintains the trails left by the paddle for a moment before they fill in again. And then, almost without warning, there is a change. The mixture becomes slightly thicker still. The trails left by the paddle take longer to fill in. The mixture is becoming more substantial. It is becoming almost like pudding, almost like custard, almost like a thick cream. The transformation has reached its deepest point. The saponification is in full progress. The oils are breaking down at the molecular level, and the lye is doing its work of transformation. The soap maker continues to stir, but they are watching closely now. They are waiting for something specific. They are waiting for the moment called the trace. This is the magical moment, the moment that every soap maker waits for, the moment that indicates that the saponification has progressed far enough that the soap is ready for the next step. The trace happens when the soap mixture becomes thick and substantial enough that the paddle can leave a mark on its surface. When you draw the paddle through the mixture and then lift the paddle away briefly, you can see the trail that the paddle has made, like a line drawn in sand. This line will eventually fill in as the mixture continues to move and flow. But in that moment, that brief moment, the trace is visible. It is a sign. It is a confirmation. It is the signal that the work has progressed to the perfect point. The soap maker makes the motion now. They draw the paddle through the mixture with intention, with awareness, with the knowledge that this is the moment they have been stirring toward. The paddle goes through the thick, creamy mass, and as it is withdrawn, as it is lifted from the mixture, something miraculous happens. The surface of the soap where the paddle has passed shows a clear trail. The mixture has become thick enough that it does not immediately flow back over the space left by the paddle. Instead, there is a moment, just a moment, where the surface holds the impression of the paddle's passing. The soap maker drizzles a small amount of the mixture from the paddle back onto the surface of the soap in the cauldron. The drizzle, which is like drawing a line with honey, sits on the surface for several seconds before slowly, gradually sinking back into the mass. The line holds its shape. It does not immediately dissolve. It does not spread out and disappear. It remains visible for a perfect, beautiful moment. This is the trace. This is the signal that the work is complete. The oils and the lye have done their mysterious work. They have combined and transformed and become one unified thing. The saponification has progressed to the point of no return. The soap is made. The transformation is complete. The stirring can stop now. The paddle is lifted from the cauldron and set aside to rest against the rim, dripping slightly, covered in the beautiful cream-colored soap that has been created. The cauldron sits before the soap maker, its copper sides glowing with firelight, containing now not oil and not a mixture, but soap. Actual, true soap, created through the marriage of oil and lye, through the work of human hands and time and knowledge passed down through generations. The cauldron sits heavy and full, its contents transformed into something perfect and ready. The soap maker stands beside it, their work reaching this crucial moment when the creation must be moved from the copper vessel into the forms that will give it shape and structure. The paddle rests against the rim, and the soap maker's breathing is steady and calm. They have done this hundreds of times, thousands of times perhaps, and yet there is always a sense of reverence in the movement from the cauldron to the molds. The wooden molds are arranged on the table nearby, waiting. They are rectangular forms, constructed from thick wooden planks carefully fitted together to create a box that is open at the top. The wood is smooth and dark from years of use, and it has absorbed the slight scent of soap from countless previous batches. Each mold is lined with cloth, a simple linen that has been treated with oil so that the soap will not stick to the wood. The cloth hangs loosely in the corners, creating a slight cushion between the wood and the soap that will soon fill it. The soap maker reaches for a large ladle. This ladle is larger than the one used for measuring oil. This ladle is a vessel meant for moving substantial quantities of the soap from the cauldron into the molds. The handle is long and strong, made of wood that has been worn smooth by countless hands working in countless kitchens and workshops across time. The bowl of the ladle is deep and wide, capable of holding several pounds of soap at once. The soap maker dips the ladle into the cauldron. The motion is careful and deliberate. The ladle descends into the thick, creamy mass, and the soap parts gently for it, accepting the intrusion with the yielding softness of something perfectly prepared. The ladle is filled, loaded with the precious soap that has been created through the marriage of oil and lye and time and human intention. The weight of it is substantial. The handle strains slightly, the wood flexing under the burden of perhaps 10 pounds of soap held in the bowl of the ladle. The soap maker lifts the ladle carefully from the cauldron. The movement is slow and steady, designed to avoid splashing or spilling, designed to honor the work that has been done. The surface of the soap in the cauldron ripples slightly from the removal of the ladle, then settles back into stillness. The ladle rises, and the soap it carries is thick enough that it does not drip or flow. It sits in the bowl of the ladle like a custard, creamy and substantial and ready. The first mold waits. The wooden form is positioned firmly on the table, and the soap maker stands above it, ladle in hand, ready to pour. The moment arrives when the ladle is tipped, when the soap begins to flow from the bowl into the wooden form below. The sound is unexpected to those who have not heard it before. It is not a thin splash like water would make. It is not a sharp hit like a stone would produce. Instead, it is something between sound and feeling, a deep gloop, a thick wet sound as the creamy soap pours from the ladle into the wooden mold. The soap spreads across the bottom of the mold like a blanket being laid over a bed. It flows slowly, with deliberate thickness, moving to fill the rectangular space. The surface smooths as it flows, creating a slowly expanding pool of pale cream-colored soap. The sound continues as the ladle empties, that satisfying gloop, that wet, heavy sound of substance being moved from one vessel to another. The soap settles into the corners of the mold, filling every space, creating a perfectly even surface. When the ladle is empty, when the last of the soap has poured from its bowl into the mold, there is a moment of completion. The wooden form is now filled with soap that has been heated and stirred and carefully poured. The surface is smooth and level, a perfect plane of pale, creamy color. The soap maker sets the ladle aside and reaches for it again, returning to the cauldron to fill it once more. The process repeats. The ladle descends, is filled, is lifted, and returns to the second mold. The pouring sound is the same, that deep, satisfying gloop of the thick soap flowing into the wooden form. The soap spreads, fills, settles. One mold becomes full, then another, and another. The rhythm is meditative and hypnotic. Ladle, pour, settle. Ladle, pour, settle. The repetition creates a kind of peace, a kind of order in the midst of work that is fundamentally transformative. More molds fill. The cauldron, which seemed so full when the trace was reached, gradually empties. The soap maker fills one mold after another until there are 6 filled molds on the table, each one brimming with the thick, creamy mixture, each one smooth and even on the surface, each one ready for the next step. The cauldron is now nearly empty, with just a small amount of soap remaining that is not quite enough to fill another mold. The soap maker accepts this. Nothing is wasted. The remaining soap will be scraped into a separate container and used for softer, greener soap, or for the batches meant for workmen's hands. Now comes the moment of the herbs. The soap maker reaches for the small bundles of dried lavender buds that hang from the beams above the workspace. These buds are purple-gray, tiny and perfect, and they carry the concentrated scent of the lavender fields where they were grown. The soap maker takes a bundle in hand and begins to scatter the buds across the surface of the soap in the first mold. The buds fall gently, creating a pattern across the cream-colored surface. As each bud lands on the soft soap, it sinks slightly into the surface. The buds do not sit on top of the soap like leaves on still water. Instead, they nestle slightly into the warm, still slightly yielding surface, embedding themselves into the very top layer of the soap. The effect is beautiful. The purple-gray buds create a speckled pattern across the pale cream, and they immediately begin to release their scent. The workshop, which already smells of lavender and rosemary and clean oil, becomes even more aromatic. The scent that rises from the soap is concentrated and deeply relaxing, the scent of summer fields brought into the cool workshop on a rainy day. The soap maker moves to the next mold and scatters lavender buds across its surface as well. Then the next. The rhythm is gentle and meditative. The buds fall like a gentle rain onto the soap, creating patterns that are similar but never exactly identical, each mold receiving its own unique distribution of the precious herbs. When the lavender is distributed across all 6 molds, the soap maker reaches for the rosemary. The rosemary bundles are slightly larger than the lavender. The needles are longer, more substantial, more visible. The soap maker takes a bundle and begins to scatter the rosemary across the soaps. The rosemary buds fall among the lavender, creating a secondary pattern. Where the rosemary lands, the scent sharpens slightly. The rosemary cuts through the soft floral notes with its herbal, almost piney character. Together, the lavender and the rosemary create a perfect balance. Together, they smell like a garden at dawn, like cleanliness itself, like the essence of things growing and fresh and alive. The soap maker works methodically through all 6 molds, ensuring that each one receives its proper coating of herbs. The surface of each soap is now covered with a speckled pattern of purple and green, a visual record of the herbs that have been added, a promise of the scent that will be released when water is added to the soap, and it is used to wash away the dust and grime of the day. The final step before the molds are covered is to smooth the surface very slightly with a wooden blade. The soap maker takes a long, flat tool, something between a spatula and a knife, and gently, barely, runs it across the surface of each mold. The motion is so light that it does nothing more than settle the herbs very slightly and ensure that the surface is as even as possible. This is not aggressive smoothing. This is the gentlest of touches, respecting the work that has been done and the herbs that have been added. When all 6 molds have been prepared, when each one is filled with soap and decorated with herbs, when each one is ready, the soap maker reaches for the blankets. These are old blankets, thick wool that has been carded and washed many times. They are worn soft from use, and they carry the faint scent of the lye water used to wash them. The blankets are large enough to cover the entire mold, and when the soap maker picks up the first one, it settles over the filled mold like a gentle weight. The blanket covers the soap completely, blocking out the air from above while still allowing the warmth generated by the saponification process to remain trapped within the mold. This is a crucial step. The saponification is not complete when the trace is reached. The trace is simply the moment when the transformation has proceeded far enough to be recognized, far enough to be confirmed. But the actual work continues, and it continues most efficiently with heat. The soap, as it undergoes the final stages of saponification, generates its own heat. The chemical reaction that transforms oil and lye into soap is exothermic, meaning it produces heat as a byproduct. When the molds are covered with blankets, this heat is trapped, creating a warm environment within the wooden forms. The heat accelerates the saponification, allowing the process to complete fully and evenly throughout the entire block of soap. The blanket is the guardian of this heat, the keeper of the perfect temperature. The soap maker covers the second mold, then the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Each mold receives a blanket, each one is covered completely, protecting the precious soap and the work that continues within the wood. When all six are covered, the table presents a different appearance. Where there were 6 molds filled with soap just moments before, there are now 6 fabric-covered forms, humped beneath their blankets like monks kneeling in prayer, like sleeping creatures, like mysteries waiting to reveal themselves. The workshop is quiet now. The work is not complete, but the active work, the stirring and the pouring, is done. The soap maker moves slowly through the workshop, performing the small tasks that accompany the waiting. The fire is tended, allowed to burn down to embers. There is no need for heat now. The soap's own chemistry will warm it. The tools are set aside, the ladles and paddles and measuring instruments arranged on the table to be cleaned when the soap is fully set. The rain continues outside. It has not stopped. If anything, it has settled into a deeper, more meditative pattern. The drops no longer fall heavily, striking the windows and the cobblestones with force. Instead, they fall with a gentle patience, a soft pattering that speaks of hours and hours more of rain, of the rain being willing to wait as long as necessary to wash the world clean. The sound comes through the windows and fills the workshop, a white noise that deepens the sense of peace and completion. The soap maker sits on a wooden stool beside the covered molds. They are not idle. Even in rest, the mind of the soap maker is working. They are thinking about tomorrow, about the batch that will need to be unmolded, about the cutting that will need to happen, about the way the soap will look when it is revealed. They are also thinking about the batch that is currently setting beneath the blankets, imagining the final stages of the saponification happening within the warmth and darkness of the coverings. Time passes differently when you are waiting. Seconds become minutes, minutes become stretches of peaceful stillness. The soap maker sits, and the rain falls, and the soap within the covered molds continues its quiet work of transformation. No one rushes this process. The soap will cure fully when the soap is ready to cure fully. The blankets will remain in place for at least a day, perhaps longer, depending on the season and the temperature of the workshop. But there is other work that can be done while waiting. The soap maker rises from their stool and moves to another part of the workshop, to where the batches from previous days are resting. The molds from yesterday are still covered with their blankets. The molds from 2 days ago are already being unmolded, the work of removing the wooden sides to reveal the blocks of fully cured soap. The molds from 3 days ago are already cut into individual bars and stacked on the drying racks. The soap maker selects the batch from 4 days ago. This batch has had sufficient time to cure. The blankets have been removed, and the wooden sides of the molds have been loosened and partially removed. The soap within is now a solid block, fully hardened through the complete saponification and the subsequent curing period. The wooden mold now serves simply as a form to hold the block, and the mold must be removed so that the block can be cut and stacked. The soap maker takes the side of the first mold in both hands. The wooden planks are fitted carefully together, but they have been loosened already, and the soap maker's practiced motion lifts the first side free. The wood comes away, and suddenly one side of the soap block is exposed. The soap is a pale greenish cream color, smooth and uniform, with the subtle speckles of dried lavender and rosemary visible across its top surface where the herbs were scattered 4 days ago. The soap maker sets the wooden side down and removes the next side, and then the next. With each removal, more of the beautiful block of soap is revealed. The soap is massive. It is a rectangular block that measures perhaps 2 feet long, 18 inches wide, and 4 inches thick. It weighs probably 30 or 40 pounds. It looks like a giant brick of butter, pale and creamy and substantial. The soap is a work of art, a perfect rectangle created not by machines, but by the careful work of human hands and the patient chemistry of simple ingredients. The final wooden side is removed, and the block of soap sits free on the table. The surface is smooth and even. The top is decorated with the herbs, creating a beautiful pattern. The sides are perfectly flat, the edges clean and sharp. This is the result of all the work, all the stirring and the pouring and the careful chemical transformation. This is soap that is ready to do its work in the world, ready to wash away the dirt and grime and sweat that accumulates on human skin during the labor of life. The soap block is moved to a cutting board, a large wooden surface that has been used for cutting soap for many years. The surface is worn, marked with the grooves and indentations of thousands of cuts, but it is clean and ready. The soap maker positions the block carefully on the cutting board and selects the cutting tool. The cutting tool for making individual bars of soap from the large block is not a knife, though a sharp knife could be used. Instead, the soap maker uses a wire. The wire is strung taut between two wooden handles, creating a saw-like tool that can slice through the soap block with precision. The wire is pulled tight, held rigid, capable of creating smooth, clean cuts through even the densest soap. The soap maker positions the wire at one end of the soap block, deciding on the thickness of the bars to be cut. Each bar should be roughly the same size, roughly 2 or 3 inches wide, depending on the preference of the buyers. The soap maker has decided on approximately 3-inch bars, and the first line is positioned accordingly. The cutting motion begins. The wire is drawn across the top of the soap block, and immediately there is resistance. The wire meets the soap, and the soap resists just slightly, just enough to feel solid, just enough to confirm that the soap has hardened completely and is ready to be cut. The resistance is satisfying. It speaks to the quality of the soap, to the completeness of the curing, to the fact that the work has been done right. As the wire continues to move across the surface and into the soap, the motion becomes a glide. The initial resistance gives way to smooth progress. The wire, which is thin but strong, cuts cleanly through the soap. There is no crushing, no crumbling, no resistance that would indicate the soap is too soft or too hard. The wire simply glides through, parting the soap into two pieces. The cutting is effortless once it begins, smooth and satisfying. The motion is almost meditative, the soap maker moving the wire back and forth across the width of the block in controlled, even strokes. When the wire has cut completely through the soap, when the motion of the wire has extended from one side to the other and the cut is complete, a slice of soap falls away from the larger block. The slice is a perfect rectangle, approximately 3 inches wide and the full length and height of the original block. The slice falls onto the cutting board with a soft thump, landing perfectly, settling into place. The first bar has been created. The surface of the soap where the wire has cut is revealed for the first time. This interior surface is as beautiful as the exterior. It is smooth and even, pale green and cream-colored, uniform throughout. The herbs are visible in cross-section, and the interior is dense and even, showing that the saponification has been uniform throughout the block, that the chemical reaction has proceeded evenly from the outside to the center. The cutting motion repeats. Another line is marked on the soap block. The wire is positioned. The first resistance, then the glide. Another bar falls away perfectly, and another, and another. The rhythm is hypnotic. The wire moves, the soap parts, a bar falls. Wire, soap, fall. Wire, soap, fall. The repetition is beautiful. The uniformity of the bars, the consistency of the cuts, the way each bar falls away perfectly is deeply satisfying. The entire block is eventually reduced into individual bars. Where there was one large rectangle, there are now perhaps a dozen smaller rectangles, each one perfect, each one uniform, each one ready to be used or sold or given as a gift. The cutting board is covered with soap, a field of pale green and cream bars, each one decorated with herbs on one end where it was the top of the original block. The final step is to separate each bar fully. Some of the bars are still connected slightly where the wire cut not completely through. The soap maker takes a blunt knife and taps each connection point, breaking the bars fully apart. The bars fall completely free, individual and complete, ready for the next stage. Now comes the stacking. The soap bars must be arranged on the drying racks to continue curing. The drying racks are wooden frames constructed simply but effectively. They consist of 4 legs supporting a flat surface, and the flat surface is a lattice of wooden slats spaced a few inches apart. The spacing allows air to circulate beneath the soap bars, allowing them to dry evenly. Multiple racks are stacked on top of each other, creating a tower of horizontal surfaces, each one holding a layer of soap bars. The soap maker begins the process of arranging the bars on the first available rack. The bars are placed in neat rows, positioned carefully so that each bar is fully supported by the slats beneath it. The arrangement is geometric and precise. The bars are not placed randomly. Instead, they are positioned in a grid, each bar touching its neighbors on the left and right, each row beginning directly where the previous row ended. The result is a perfect rectangle of soap bars, a field of pale green and cream, a visual representation of order and precision and careful work. The bars are arranged single layer deep. They do not overlap or stack on top of each other on the same rack. Instead, each bar is given its own space, allowing air to circulate around it. The drying process is as important as the making process. The soap must dry slowly and evenly, losing its remaining moisture gradually, becoming harder and more stable as the days pass. The open arrangement on the racks facilitates this process. When the first rack is filled, when there is no more room for additional bars, the soap maker moves to the next rack. More bars are arranged in the same perfect grid. Row after row, bar after bar, the racks fill. The soap maker moves methodically through all the bars from the cut block, arranging them all carefully, ensuring that each one is properly positioned for drying. By the time all the bars from this one block are arranged on the racks, the tower of soap has grown. There are now multiple racks stacked on top of each other, each one filled with pale green bars arranged in perfect geometric patterns. The sight is satisfying in a way that is hard to describe. The repetition and the order and the uniformity create a sense of peace. The beauty is not in any single bar, but in the overall pattern, in the way the bars create a surface that is almost hypnotic in its uniformity. The arrangements from the previous days are also visible throughout the workshop. The racks are positioned along the walls and in the corners, creating towers of drying soap. Each tower represents days or weeks of work, batches made and poured and cut and arranged. The soap on the oldest racks is harder, drier, more pale in color. The soap on the newer racks is greener, still slightly softer, still curing. The progression is visible to the eye, and it represents the journey of the soap from liquid to solid, from fresh made to fully cured. The workshop smells divine. The scent of the drying soap is everywhere, layered and complex. The lavender is prominent, but beneath it is the rosemary, sharp and green. Beneath that is the warm scent of the olive oil, the earthy notes of the wood ash, the subtle hint of tallow, and something entirely new, something that is the scent of soap itself, clean and pure and entirely indescribable. When all the bars from the day's cutting have been arranged on the drying racks, when the work is complete, the soap maker turns their attention to cleanup. The tools must be cleaned. The tables must be wiped down. The cauldron must be scraped and prepared for the next batch. Nothing is left to chance or to later. The cleanup is part of the work, and it is done with the same care and attention as the soap making itself. The wooden paddle is scraped carefully, removing any remaining soap. The soap that is scraped off is saved, collected into a container. This soap will be used for the batches meant for laborers, for those who work with their hands and need soap that is more robust. The paddle is then washed in cool water drawn from the well, cleaned until no soap residue remains. The surface is dried and set aside. The ladles are cleaned in the same way. The measuring cups, the stirring spoons, the small brushes used for cleaning the equipment, all are washed and dried and returned to their places. The cutting wire is carefully inspected, ensuring that no fragments of soap have adhered to it, that it is ready for the next cutting session. The cutting board is scraped and washed clean. The cauldron is the final tool to be cleaned. The soap maker approaches it with respect. This vessel has held more soap than any other object in the workshop. Its copper sides are stained with the accumulation of countless batches. The inside is scraped carefully with a wooden scraper, removing any soap residue that has adhered to the surface. The scraper moves across the bottom and up the sides, bringing away the cream-colored residue. When the scraping is complete, water is poured into the cauldron. Some salt is added to the water, creating a mild abrasive solution. The soap maker uses a cloth to scrub the inside of the cauldron, and the combination of the cloth, the salt, and the water removes any remaining residue. The copper beneath shines as it is cleaned, revealing the warmth of the metal. The cauldron is rinsed thoroughly, water being drawn from the well and poured until all the salt and soap residue are gone. The cauldron is dried with a cloth, and its interior glistens in the workshop light. The copper shines with a reddish warmth, and the cauldron is ready to rest until the next batch is needed. The tools are all clean. The workshop is orderly. Every surface is clear and ready. The work of cleanup is complete. The rain has softened. The heavy pattering that filled the workshop earlier has become lighter, more sporadic. The drops still fall, but they are gentler, less aggressive. The sound is quieter, more subtle. It is as if the rain itself has settled into a peaceful rhythm, a slower pulse, a meditation on the work of water and gravity and time. The soap maker sits on the wooden stool again, positioned now between the towers of drying racks. On all sides are the bars of soap in various stages of curing. The soap is working, even now. The molecules continue to rearrange themselves. The soap continues to harden, to stabilize, to become exactly what it will be. This is the final work, the work that happens without the need for human hands or heat or stirring. This is the work of time, of chemistry, of the soap becoming itself completely. The scent in the workshop is overwhelming, but not unpleasant. It is the scent of lavender and rosemary and clean oil and soap, all mingling together to create something that smells like purity itself. The scent has therapeutic properties. Breathing in the scent is like breathing in calm, like breathing in safety, like breathing in cleanliness. The soap maker sits quietly, breathing, allowing the scent to fill their lungs, allowing the peace of the completed work to settle into their body. Outside, the world is muddy and damp and full of the grime that accumulates in a medieval village. Outside, people are dirty from their labor and their living. But in here, in this workshop, there is only cleanliness. There is only order. There is only the beautiful transformation of simple ingredients into something essential. There is only soap and the work that creates it and the peace that comes from work done well. The fire in the fireplace has burned down to embers. The glow is gentle, creating dancing shadows across the workshop walls. The copper cauldron gleams in the firelight. The wooden molds that hold the newest batch of soap sit covered with their blankets, silent and still, the saponification continuing within their wooden boundaries. All is well. All is complete. All is peaceful. The soap maker remains seated, watching the light change as the day draws toward evening. The rain continues its gentle work outside. The soap continues its gentle work inside. Everything moves at its own pace. Everything follows its own timeline. There is no rushing. There is no hurrying. There is only the work, and the trust in the work, and the knowledge that time and chemistry and careful attention will result in something perfect. The bars on the drying racks are beginning to harden further already. They have been cut and arranged only today, but they are already becoming harder, already becoming more pale as the surface dries. In a few days, they will be hard enough to be stored, to be sold, to be used. In a few weeks, they will be completely cured, at their absolute best, ready to wash away the dust and the grime and the accumulated dirt of the world. The soap will do its work, washing hands and faces and bodies, bringing cleanliness and freshness to those who use it. But for now, in this moment, the soap simply rests. It rests and cures and becomes itself. The workshop is filled with the scent of it. The air is thick with lavender and rosemary. The soap maker sits in the center of it all, surrounded by the work of their hands, surrounded by the beauty of chemistry and transformation and care. The rain continues to fall softly outside, and the workshop stands quiet and clean and filled with purpose. This is a place of purity in a muddy world. This is where cleanliness is made, drop by drop, ladle by ladle, bar by bar. This is where the simple ingredients of nature are transformed into something that the world cannot live without. And as the rows of fresh soap dry in the cool air and the rain stops, the workshop stands silent, a place of purity in a muddy world. The work is done, and you are safe. Sleep well.